So today I thought my title would be appropriate with July 4th, and that is that freedom starts with you. Because you are all that is. There's nothing but you in your world when you really break it down. Everything outside of you is a perception that you create. And so as I thought about this, I remembered a statement from Ernest Holmes. And he basically said this. He said, the divine plan is one of freedom. The inherent nature of everyone is ever seeking to express itself in terms of freedom, because freedom is the birthright of every living soul. So, you hear all the time that God has a plan for you. That I've got to tap in and find out what God's plan for me is. Well, here it is. God's plan is that you have perfect freedom. God actually gave you that nature to seek freedom in everything. Everything. And then because freedom is your birthright, it's also the birthright of every living soul. Think about that now. When are you the most rebellious? When you do not feel free. That's when we rebel the most. We will take so much until that freedom is blocked. Now I want to say, to make this clear, there are different aspects to freedom. There's the freedom that you experience within your own mind, the freedom you experience within your own thoughts. There's the freedom that from that consciousness you experience with your family, you experience with your life partner, you experience with your children. There's the freedom that you experience within your little social community. There's the freedom that you experience within the city that you live, within the area of a state in which you live, in the state in which you live, in the country in which you live, in the world in which you live. You see, freedom has many, 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 many dimensions. What I'm going to talk about today is the freedom within your own mind. The freedom how you perceive life, how you perceive things. You see, it starts with the idea that each one of us is born unique. There are no two people on the planet with the same fingerprint. There's no two people with the same face, no two people with the same eyes. There are no two people that have ever lived that are ever the same as anyone else. Each of us is born unique. And think about it, not only are we born unique, but we're born with the gift of freedom as our inherent nature. So knowing that we are unique, we are also given the gift, and that gift is we are given the power to create. We create our life experience through the perception that we create, which turns out to be the lens in which we view life. And how we view life determines our experience. If you view life as that everything is an opportunity, that's a lot different than viewing life that I am a victim. Very different perspectives there. And you will have different experiences, because why? When you view life that everything is an opportunity, your mind is focusing on how can I benefit from this? How can I make this better? But if you're viewing at life as I am a victim, you're saying, well, how can I feel more of a victim, and you go deeper and deeper into the victim consciousness. So your power to create is in through the perception that you have. Why is it that certain people, I'll use myself as an example. My father was Polish. His parents were immigrants from Poland. They lived in a Polish section of the Detroit area called Hamtramck, where there were all Polish people. My mother actually came over from Sicily, so my mother was an immigrant. And they lived in the Italian section. You could call it the Polish ghetto and the Italian ghetto at the time. So they met in the later 40s. Okay? So when they met, man, they were not in a place to come together, because at that time, Polish people and Italian people did not mingle. It was considered taboo. And so what happened is they met through working at, my dad was a chef at Chrysler's executive dining room, and my mother was a waitress, and they met there. And for whatever reason, they were attracted, they came together, they went on. But here's the interesting thing, when they got married, they ended up moving away from the Polish family, the Italian family, into another area that was not Polish or Italian. And because they moved away, when I was brought up in a different arena with a different atmosphere. So I had a different perspective than my cousins on either side. So I lived a different life. I'm the one who first moved away. I moved out of Michigan to Rhode Island, then to Tampa, then to Rhode Island, and here I am in Texas. It was because of where I was born that a lot of my perspective happens. Do you realize that where you're born determines basically, or who you're born to determines what your family life is going to be, what your religious life is going to be, what your political preference will be? But you have the power to change that. But unless you recognize that power, it won't change. Here's what I want to say about the power to create. This power is fully centered in our ability to choose. And we choose in every moment what we choose to focus on. And right now, I would ask you, with everything going on in this country, right here, right now, that you choose, you make a conscious choice that if you know that you are unique, you know that you have the ability to create your life and you have the power within you, make sure you look at every other human being and see that they are unique and they have the power, and that every human being on the planet deserves an equal opportunity. Every human being on the planet deserves an equal opportunity. No one should be denied an equal opportunity to use and express their freedom. I'll say this, we are in community. So as in community, when we use that freedom, we don't do it to hurt others, to consciously go out and hurt others. I have no problem with protesting, none at all. I've done my share of protesting in my life. I've been a part of that. I did that in the late 60s, early 70s. Walked in many marches. I walked in marches for freedom, well, along the lines of Martin Luther King. I walked in marches against the Vietnam War. I walked in marches for women's freedom. Back in the late 60s, early 70s, all of that was going on. What I believed is we were all equal. I didn't believe that we should be forced into a war that had no meaning. And people laughed at me, they mocked me because they labeled me a hippie. I didn't have long hair, but I was labeled that because I was against the war. Why? That war was not about more life. That war was about corporate power. And I saw that. I was never against the soldiers, but I was against the people who were sending the people there. And I'm still against that. I'm very much against war. I think there's a peaceful way that we can do this. But we've got to come together and understand that. And we've got to be solidified in our result. And we have to make a choice that everyone is equal within our mind, and we give everyone that opportunity to express that unique and whole and perfect quality of equality that they have a right to. You see, every day we are giving a new canvas, and we can create whatever we choose. I remember the movie 50 First Dates with Drew Barrymore and Adam Sandler, and how Drew Barrymore forgets, every night she goes to bed, she forgets who she is. And every night after she's done painting in this barn, her father and her brother go in and they paint the wall white, and so the next day it's always a new canvas, and she gets to paint whatever she wants on that. And then toward the latter part of the movie, when she's left Adam, she's gone away and he's gone away and he's come back, and she's teaching in this memory center, and he says, "Do you know me?" And she says, "I don't know you, but for whatever reason, I need to show you something." And she takes him into this back room where all these huge paintings of art, and they're pictures of him. Because in her subconscious mind, every time she went to the canvas, she created him on that canvas. Keep that in mind, is every day are you creating the same picture on your canvas? But more importantly, is the picture you're creating one that you want? She wanted that picture of Adam Sandler as her boyfriend. That was juicing her. There was a love that was bringing that out. I love that you recreate that love. I recreate that love every day when I wake up with my wife and my children and my granddaughter. That's a picture I want to create, and I want to add more color to, more life to. Other aspects of me, I want to change. And so I get the opportunity every day to create a new Lee by how I look at life. You see, our job is to simply remember who we are and do what is natural for us. It's natural for us to want to experience more. It's natural for us to have a greater desire for more abundance, for more love, for greater health, for a greater experience of life. The greatest freedom that we can use toward anything is our freedom to experience the fullness and allness of life, to do things so that when we leave this physical body, we leave this body spent, completely spent, having enjoyed every aspect that we can of life. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're struggling so much with this quarantine right now, is we want to go do things. We don't like being put into our box. And you can see people are rebelling against that. And people say, well, it's not making sense. It may not be making sense, but the innate desire of freedom that's a part of them, they're not choosing to control right now. I'm not going to label it as right or wrong. I'm looking at it, that's what's happening. You have to make your decision how you live. What does freedom mean to you? And how do you fit into society? No one can tell you that, because you can see even in the United States, when you're told to shelter in place, when you're told to social distance, when you're told this and that, vast majority of people are not going to follow, because they're going to make the choice. And when you don't give them the choice, they're going to say the government is taking away our rights. I'm not arguing one way or another. Please don't think I am. Some of you are, because that's what happens. I already know that every time I do a talk, 98 out of 100 people say, hey, that was a great talk. They have completely different meanings of what I talk about. 2 people will walk out and say, that talk was horrible. That talk was absolutely ridiculous. You know what? I can't be responsible for that. In other words, I can't care what you think about. But what I can do is I can give you the very best I've got in that moment. And if it resonates with you, so be it. If it doesn't resonate with you, I'm not responsible for how you resonate with things. Only you are. And that's the key thing with any human being. They are responsible for their experience and how they resonate. Now the question is, now that you know it, what are you going to do with it? So I come back to Ernest Holmes when he said the divine plan is one of freedom. The inherent nature of everyone is seeking to express itself in terms of freedom, because freedom is the birthright of every living soul. I invite you today to spend a few moments and explore, what does freedom really mean to you? And knowing that freedom is the birthright of every human on the planet, ask this question: how can we use freedom to create a world that works for everyone? Because if it doesn't work for everyone, we won't be free. I want to thank you for joining us today. I'm so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask that you go to our website, agapecsl.com. Once there, click on the donate button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. Or if you would like, text your gift by simply dialing 972-532-6976. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to you in the world. I would ask that if you like this message, to please subscribe to my YouTube channel under my name, Lee Wolak. Again, I want to thank you for joining me in the Agape community as we learn how to better self-love through conscious living.